Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Well, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here today. First off, I'd like to thank Ron for inviting me to speak today, and I'd also like to give a shout out to Jody Holstein with Florida Bicycle Association. And I want to let you know that because of you two, I just renewed my tag, and I purchased a Share the Road tag. I'm going to put it on my car tonight when I drive back to Jacksonville, so I'm expecting special treatment out of you guys. So, all right, well, like you said, Tim, I am now the director of the T-Square Center at the University of Florida. This is a brand new job for me, and we provide training services for the transportation industry. We do some rural road safety outreach, and we also house the Pedestrian Bicycle Resource Center for the state of Florida. And I'd like to introduce Wanda Tyson over there in the green. And thank you. And Wanda runs our center, and she was telling me that in the last 2 years we've delivered over 1 million items to nonprofit organizations and agencies around the state of Florida. And I'm sure many of you in the audience are customers of ours, so we appreciate that relationship. How many people know about the Pedestrian Bicycle Resource Center? Okay, great. How many of you actually used it? Great, thank you. Thank you. And of course, that's funded by the Florida DOT, so we appreciate that as well. But I will tell you that I've been on the job for about 8 months, and most of my experience comes from my technical background working for the DOT. And I used to be in the District 2 office, and I actually was working in Jacksonville. And I was Assistant District Traffic Ops Engineer in charge of ITS, traffic studies, traffic safety, and community traffic safety teams. One of my employees was the District Bicycle Pedestrian Coordinator, so that fell under my responsibility. And I wanted to share a personal story with you about how I sort of had a transition and became a believer in the bicycle movement. Like many technical people in the DOT, we learned how to do things a certain way. We are very car-centric. And I started in Fort Lauderdale and later moved up to the Jacksonville area. And the way it happened for me is back in 2011, the Dangerous by Design study came out. There was also some other publication, the Mean Streets publication. They called Jacksonville the 3rd worst city in the United States for pedestrians and bicycles. Well, here I was, a traffic engineer in Jacksonville, responsible for the safety of the state roads, and I kind of took that personally. And so I did what any traffic engineer did. I dove into the data, and right here, this is our first GIS map. This is from back around 2012. And this was several years of data. Every dot on there was a bike or ped crash. The red dots were fatalities. And this is only a partial picture because our data has gotten better in the past few years. But this was one of the early shots. And we started looking at this, trying to find trends and figure out this problem so we could solve it. And what we determined from this data and from talking to law enforcement officers is that most of our problem was in the ring outside of the urban core. And I said, okay, what's going on in these neighborhoods? And there was a couple things. From an engineering standpoint, I looked at the design of the roadways. And that's where the slow speeds end, and the roads are designed for higher speeds. The neighborhoods were built after World War II. They didn't have as many sidewalks, but yet they were built on an automobile scale. You weren't in the urban core anymore. But yet you were close enough where you could easily walk and bike to all the infrastructure in the urban core. So the other thing is these neighborhoods, a lot of them had kind of fallen down and they weren't as valuable anymore. So there was a socioeconomic factor at play here. Basically, these were the poorer areas. So I went to the law enforcement and they told me, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. We have a lot of people that are, the economy's bad and they've lost their jobs. They can't put gas in the truck. And some people have DUIs, and and they're on their bikes, and that's showing up in the data. And so that was an idea of what our problem was and what we could do about it. And I saw that some of this was, there were engineering solutions to the problem, but there were a lot of behavioral problems as well. So I went out and I tried to get some help. I realized that what we had been doing at the DOT wasn't working. So I wanted to get the perspective from our customers, from bicyclists, and find out what they thought, and maybe I could get some ideas on how to fix this problem. Well, at the time, Jacksonville did not have a BPAC. The BPAC was dissolved earlier because it was basically ineffective. Well, when the Mean Streets report came out, a gentleman named James Reed with the city of Jacksonville started the BPAC back up. So I went to this meeting, and I got to tell you, as a traffic engineer, I walked in the room and I thought I knew this stuff. I thought I knew how to design roads and how to move traffic and how to make things safer. And I sat down and I listened to everybody argue with each other. And I realized I don't know as much as I thought I knew. And not only that, but I don't understand these people. One person would say, I want bike lanes everywhere, and other people say, no, you want to ride out in the road. It's like, it was very confusing for me being exposed to this for the first time. So I sat back and I listened, and I did what a lot of engineers do. I stereotype and I put labels on things. So I'd like to share with you kind of my thought process of going through this. And here are the eight types of cyclists that I identified, and I've seen this done in other places, but this is what I came up with just meeting the people at the BPAC, and maybe everybody could play along and identify who in the room falls under which category. But number one, vehicular cyclists, and I met these folks, and they said, take the lane. I don't want bike lanes. I don't want multi-use paths. I want to get out there in the lane, and I want to be like a car, and I want cars to respect me. I said, what do you do on a 45-mile-an-hour road? You take the lane, you get out there, and they're just going to go around me. I said, good luck with that. And next, the other extreme was the segregationist. And they said, DOT, why don't you build a completely separate bicycle network for me and where I'm going? And it was, well, it's money and it's cost, and if that's what you want, well, good luck with that too. And then I found there was a lot of people that were recreational cyclists. They put their bike on the car, they drive to the bike lanes, they go for a ride, and I would include in this group people that go on group rides, and I suspect that's a lot of people in the room. And they have a different set of concerns. And actually, I think someone asked me one time, why are you not building urban trails like this? And I said, well, because 10, 15 years ago, that's who showed up. They're the ones that were listened to by the decision makers, and that's why we have a lot of rails to trails now. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's very good, as I learned this morning, for the economy. But for the urban safety problem that we're seeing, it really doesn't address that. And then pediddlers. Now this is a copyrighted expression. Joe Stevenson of St. Johns County, he came up with this. So that's his, and these are kids and slow-moving people. These are anybody who really prefers to be a pedestrian. And the Florida state law allows you to operate as a pedestrian on the sidewalk, and there's nothing wrong with that. But they are a roadway user, and as a traffic engineer, we need to consider their needs as well. Commuters, and this is something we see trending. We don't have any hard data on this, but my subjective feeling is in Jacksonville and in Gainesville especially, there's a lot more commuters out there on the road. I believe that this is a trending area, that you will see more people using their bicycles as utility. 10 years ago, you didn't see it anywhere, but except maybe Gainesville. But this is something I believe is very important. And also, this is the type of use that may be reflected in the crash data that we're seeing in Jacksonville. And then I'd add reluctant commuters. And from talking to people at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, they tell me that there's an awful lot of commuters out there that basically they don't really have the skills or the equipment. They don't have the bike lights. They're the salmon riders riding against the flow of traffic. They're dressed in dark clothes. They don't have the bike lights. And this is the group that is getting in crashes more than anything. One interesting statistic that the data showed is that 6% of all bicycle crashes, the bicyclist was drinking alcohol. Okay? Now, how many men between the ages of 45 and 55 are there? I'm going to raise my hand because I'm one of them. Okay, a few of you. Okay, you are the problem demographic. You are twice as likely to be drunk on your bike as any other age group. And I could tell you all the reasons why that would be true for me, but that will go on. So that demographic, and what we have out there is a lot of DUI offenders. They've lost their license, they're on their bicycles, they don't have the skills, they don't have the safety equipment, and that's showing up in the data. Okay. Fixie hipsters. Now this is a relatively new thing in Gainesville, but I'll tell you that this is, it's a fashion trend, or is it just ironic? I'm not sure. So, but you know what I'm talking about. They're out there, and I tell you, this demographic has passion for bicycling. When the Jacksonville BPAC started back up, there was about 10 people in the room. And after the third, fourth meeting, I walked in, there were 50 people in the room. It's like, what happened? And it's the 20, 30-somethings, they got on the social networks and they organized and they showed up. And their voice was heard and they said, we want you to do something about the safety problem, about the culture, about the problems in Jacksonville. I want to be able to ride in Jacksonville without people throwing stuff at me. So the other thing is, this is our problem demographic. And I believe that these are our foot soldiers. If you want to get the message out to this demographic, these folks are riding in the same areas. And I believe the peer pressure on the ground is the way to make that happen. The last type of cyclist that we found was the ninjas. And they don't show up for the meetings. But you do see them around, and this is a problem, and actually in Jacksonville there's a group that they love to get together at midnight, down a few beers, ride through the streets with no lights as fast as they can, with fixed-geared cycles that are silent. And they enjoy that. So this is a real thing. But anyway, that's the 8 types of cyclists. Now, one thing that I heard at the BPAC is mainly the vehicular cyclists and the segregationists were arguing with each other tooth and nail. And so what I did is I went out and I tried to meet with them after the meeting one-on-one. And vehicular cyclists, I took a cycling savvy course with Jeff Holstein, and I learned a heck of a lot as a traffic engineer. That I didn't know before, and I took that with me. And I rode with the different groups, not the ninjas, but most of them, to learn from their perspective. And I found that really they agree on 90% of everything, but yet they argue over that 10%. Okay, so as a community, as a bicycling community, I would recommend focus on the part that you agree upon, and then we can get some things done. Now, they agree that engineering, education, and enforcement, that's the way we're going to solve this problem. So I took what I learned from the BPAC and from the different riders, And here are a few projects. This is the Sharrows, the shared lane pavement marking on Riverside Avenue in Jacksonville in front of the Cummer Art Museum, if you're familiar with that. That's a block away from the riverfront multi-use path, and it's the funnel between downtown and the Riverside area, which is one of the most walkable, bikeable neighborhoods in Jacksonville. And this was brought to me by the Jacksonville Bike Coalition, Harley Henry, a bicycle advocate. Okay, this is the San Jose bike lanes that were installed about 2 months ago. And at first, the design engineers said it wouldn't fit. We argued with them. We got it put in. And this was brought to me by Chris Burns, the cycling attorney in Jacksonville. And he was concerned because there's an on-street parking lane, and a bicyclist got hit in it from a left hook. The bicyclist got the ticket. And we said, that's not right. Something needs to be done. So now we have a legal place that's prominent, and people know the bicycles belong. We've been getting good comments about that project. Okay, next, gentleman named Randy Bold, an advocate. He came to me and he said, I'd ride this ride every Saturday morning from San Marco neighborhood to the Riverside Arts Market over the Acosta Bridge, which is the only bridge in Jacksonville where you can ride a bike in the street and cross the river, if that made sense. You can cross the Main Street Bridge, but you have to be on the sidewalk. This is the only river crossing for bicycles in Jacksonville. We're going to formalize it. In the DOT's work program, we have a project to put bike lanes in. We have to retrofit some unsafe bridge drainage gratings. And also, the city of Jacksonville is trying to do a road diet project and put bike lanes in there. And that will interconnect the River Walk, which is a terrific multi-use path. It'll be the primary river crossing in Jacksonville. And this came from a citizen who took it upon himself to stand out there on a Saturday for 4 hours and count traffic and count cars as a way to persuade me to do something about it. So we're doing something about it. And this is, I consider this to be ground zero in Jacksonville. This is the center of the town. This is the river crossing downtown. And lastly, this is a project that was brought to us by George Martin with Florida Bicycle Association. And he asked for the full lane signs. And who said we didn't do that in DOT? I said that. You said that. Okay, you're wrong. We got one right here. Bridge Alliance in St. Augustine. Thank you. And also the yield to ped signs, because we recognize some pedestrians want to be on the sidewalk and some want to be in the road. This picture was taken about 3 days after that was painted. We had no idea it was going to be on the movable part of the bridge. But that's 30 feet in the air, so it's a great billboard for cycling.
And it was on the cover of some growth magazine, too. It was shoveled, right?
Thank you. I took that on my iPhone.
Actually on the cover for the Association of Pedestrian Bicycle Professionals annual calendar.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, so this Bridge Alliance. Okay, after doing all this, this is what I took from the BPAC, and this is what I believe to be true. I think I was asked to present ideas for policy changes and things like that. Well, so the status quo ain't working. Now, I'm looking back at a 27-year career with the DOT. What we've been doing for the last 25 years or so, it hasn't been working. We do need a different strategy. One size does not fit all. There's 8 different types of cyclists. Sometimes a Sharrow, sometimes a bike lane, sometimes a separated bike lane, sometimes a multi-use path. It depends on the road. It depends on the riders. It depends on so much. That's why we need context-sensitive design, complete streets. One size does not fit all. Connect the network. I think there should be an added emphasis for the DOT to connect those missing links. So often the DOT builds based on opportunity. When they happen to be out there resurfacing the road, that's when the bike lanes get attention. But if you have a resurfacing project on a narrow right-of-way, the bike lane doesn't get put in. So we need to add an emphasis to connect the network. DOT design standards. As an insider to the DOT, I can tell you there's been more positive change in the last 3 years than in the previous 25 years. I got to hand it, thank you. I got to hand it to Billy, to Dwayne, to Marianne Coos to make those changes in the design standards. And that's a really great thing. Florida's heading in the right direction. Lastly, general awareness. I think this is working great. I had a meeting with the Florida Association of County Engineers and Roadway Superintendents to take a pulse of how county governments are looking at this issue. And every one of the county engineers in the room said, yes, our commissions are hot on this subject. It is a tough project all around. So general awareness is really good, and it is because of this gentleman right here, general awareness. Okay, that's my joke. And what is needed, I would recommend educate, educate, educate. And as the T-Square Center, we stand ready to help provide the training and deliver that training across the state of Florida. In the plans prep manual, there's a word that says the DOT, we must accommodate bicycles and pedestrians. I think that should be changed to encourage. And I think that may change the attitude of some of the rank and file DOT design engineers. Put engineers on bikes. Yeah. Julie was talking about that. When I got on a bike, I saw the world in a whole different way. And I believe that that will change the attitude of a lot of design engineers. And that's where a lot of the key decisions are made, down on the ground level with the design engineers. A robust advocacy network. Sometimes when I look at Jacksonville, I saw a group that was scattered. They lacked a common goal, a common vision. And over the years, I think it's starting to gel. They're heading in the right direction. They're being heard by the city council. A robust advocacy network, it works. And I hope some of the slides of the projects that I've done as a DOT engineer show, every one of those came from an advocate knocking on my door asking for that. Finally, safety funding, change the B in BC, benefit to cost ratios. Benefits are measured in crashes reduced. There's also benefits in health improvement, crime reduction, economic activities. Those should be added into the number for benefits. Okay. Sorry for going over. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris. Good job.